And welcome everybody to this Sunday edition of Tobs Talk presented by Thomas and Ferris right here on Greenlight Channel 2. I'm Jake Donnelly. Thank you so much for tuning in. And after 2 games, the Tobs, well, they sit at 500 at 23-23. A 2-game series against the Peninsula Pilots in Hampton, Virginia, in which the Tobs took the first game by a score of 8-6. Christian Slugger, who's been at the top of the CPL and ERA for almost the entire summer, well, he went 5 innings, allowed just 2 earned runs, but he really had to pitch around a ton of errors from the Tobs. It's something the Tobs have, well, they've done all season long, and the Tobs were actually down by a score of 3-0. They came back to tie it at 3-3. Then they found themselves down by a score of 5-3 before scoring 5 runs in the 7th inning, thanks to a couple of errors by the Peninsula Pilots, really handing the game over to the Tobs. They took an 8-5 lead with that 5-run 7th inning. Cameron Langfels, who replaced Christian Slugger in the bottom of the 6th inning, went 3 innings in relief, allowing just 1 earned run. He ended up picking up the win in that game, his first decision of the season, so he now sits at 1-0. And after the 8 innings, he handed the ball over to the Tobs' terrific closer, Chris Williams, who was able to take out the entire 9th inning, allowing just 1 2-out single. 12-foot nubber right out in front of the plate, but that was really the only blemish for him, as he is now 8 for 8 in save opportunities so far this season. And in every single one of those save opportunities, Williams has not allowed a run of any kind, really holding down the fort for the Wilson Tobs when it comes to that 9th inning. So the Tobs won that game 8-6 and then had to spend a night in Suffolk, Virginia before returning right back to War Memorial Stadium for the next night's game against the Peninsula Pilots. And that night's game didn't go so well. Braden Bristow pitched pretty well out on the mound for the Tobs, going 6 innings, allowing just 1 earned run. However, he did allow 3 unearned runs after an error by Doug Teagarden allowed 3 runs to come across in the 4th inning, giving the Pilots a 4-1 lead at that point. They would tack on 4 more in the 8th inning before the Tobs scored 3 in the top of the 9th to make it an 8-4 score, but the rally was much too little, much too late, and now the Tobs sit at 23-23, which is, of course, at 500, something they've been at for pretty much the entire season. And that's something we're going to talk with assistant coach Chris Rawlings of the Wilson Tobs, as he will be pinch hitting for head coach Justin Hay on this edition of Tobs Talk, presented by Thomas and Ferris right here on Greenlight Channel 2. And welcome back, everybody, to this edition of Tobs Talk, presented by Thomas and Ferris right here on Greenlight Channel 2. I'm Jake Donnelly, and with me right now for the first time this season is assistant coach of the Tobs, Chris Rawlings. Chris, thank you so much for coming on here this morning. And the Tobs, they sit at 500. It's something they've been at pretty much for the entire season. But the one question I have to ask of you, it kind of looks from my standpoint that some of them are getting tired. What did you do when you were playing at Barton that allowed you to kind of snap out of those funks?
Well, when you get physically tired, like it's going to happen with this long season, it takes a special player to lock in mentally, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to come the physical fatigue that you're going to experience in the 60-game season. And I mean, when it's 100 degrees outside or even 85 degrees outside every day, it's going to take a lot out of you physically, and that's what we're seeing with our guys right now. And the only way that you can overcome that is just to lock in mentally for every pitch of every game and just give it all you got, and just know that if you get to the point where you can't lock in mentally, then you got somebody on the bench who's going to be able to fill in for you, and that's where you got to trust in your teammates and stuff like that. So.
Now, did you relax a little bit more? Did you try to take a little bit more time off of your feet when you felt yourself getting tired during the day to kind of prepare yourself for games? What did you do? Yes,
you know, when we did have an opportunity to have an off day, and in this league you really don't get that many of them, maybe 1 a week, you have to take that day completely off. As a player, I was big in the weight room, and you know, building that physical strength helps you endure a long season like this. And if guys would take the advantage of the off day and, you know, maybe take that day off from the gym and baseball, and then just kind of exhausting themselves mentally, thinking through the game and stuff like that, then it would probably help them recover a little bit more. And I think we're trying to get our guys to do a little better job of that right now.
Now, this is your first year as an assistant coach for the Wilson Tobs. Justin Hay was an assistant coach a couple of years back. Now, obviously, the head coach of the Tobs. What has been your experience like so far this summer?
Well, it's been an interesting one. I've been very fortunate to meet all the players we've had. You know, building those relationships is why you become a coach. Helping those guys, helping them move forward in their life, and accomplish the goals that they set out for themselves. And that's been the biggest thing for me, is watching these guys grow as individuals from the day they get here until the day they leave.
And you're actually a Charlotte boy, but you've been in Wilson now for 6 years. Why'd you end up coming to Wilson, for those people that don't know at home?
Oh, well, baseball brought me to Wilson. I love this game. It was the only opportunity I had to play baseball at the next level, so I took it, and I never regretted it since.
Yeah, and a guy who played middle infield, specifically, was it second base or shortstop for the Bulldogs? Shortstop for the Bulldogs, but more of the David Epstein type, correct?
Yeah, I wasn't the big physical guy that could throw the ball 95 miles an hour across the diamond. I had to use speed and agility to play the game the right way. So.
Yeah, and you are big into fitness, you're big into working out. It kind of keeps you fresh, but now you're not in the game. When it comes to these players, what do you think the hardest part is for them when they are so tired?
Just when you get tired as a player in a game that requires so much physical strength to perform at a high level, it makes you change what you do on a daily basis, from a pitch to pitch standpoint. When you're used to being able to steal a bag and help your team that way, and your legs are really tired, what are you going to be able to do instead of stealing that bag? Maybe take a dirt ball that you wouldn't have had if you were stealing, or when your hands are tired and you're the guy that's supposed to be driving in runs, are you going to be able to stay locked in and just hit those singles and contribute to your team that way versus hitting those doubles, especially at the end of the season like this?
All right, well, Chris, a very good infielder for the Barton Bulldogs, doing a good job as an assistant coach this summer for the Wilson Tobs, and also apparently pinch hitting for head coach Justin Hay this morning. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
All right, when we come back after this next break, folks, we'll have Meagan Culkin from Sweet Creations right here in Wilson in preparation for Slugger's 16th birthday. All that and more on this edition of Tobs Talk, presented by Thomas and Ferris right here on Greenlight Channel 2. And welcome back, everybody, to this edition of Tobs Talk, presented by Thomas and Ferris right here on Greenlight Channel 2. I'm Jake Donnelly, and joining me right now is the owner of Sweet Creations, Meagan Culkin. Meagan, thank you so much for coming in this morning. I have to ask, because it's Slugger's birthday, first off, what is the dessert that you will be serving today?
Well, we're having a big sheet cake to bring out on the field for Slugger to cut into, for us to sing to him. And then we're going to have some baseball cupcakes in the concession stand for the kids.
Okay, so if people want their desserts and sweets, Sweet Creations got their back for tonight's
Definitely.
game. Okay, how long have you actually had Sweet Creations open?
Well, I started my junior year in college, doing it just kind of when I was home from breaks and stuff like that. So it's been going on for about 3.5, 4 years now. And when I moved home last May, I started doing it full time, still at a catering level, but outsourcing more, including weddings and baby showers and things like that, some of the things I hadn't been doing in the past.
Now, what got you into it? I know you're saying that like towards the end of college you started doing it, but what was really the impetus behind it?
Well, my grandmother was a baker, and I grew up baking with her every day on Saturdays and stuff like that for family friends and for our church. And my dad was a chef, so I kind of came by it honest growing up in the kitchen. But I really got into it when I was doing catering and event planning and stuff like that, wanting to really be a part of all the different aspects of the events that I was being a part of.
And what's your favorite part about Sweet Creations?
Definitely the events that I cater. I do a lot of dance recitals. I sell cake pops at theater shows and dance recitals, and just being able to work with the kids and seeing how excited they are for it. And it's become kind of a tradition now that kids can anticipate that I'm going to be there. So they're really excited, and just them running in and seeing me and coming up and giving me a hug and stuff, being known around town as the cupcake lady or the cake pop lady is kind of fun.
Yeah, it does seem like it would be fun. So it's not necessarily the dance recitals that they get excited about, but what's going to be there after the dance recital is over.
Well, my mom owns a dance studio, so maybe we shouldn't say that they're not excited about the dance recitals, but I think the cake pops are nice.
So
bonus.
it's doubly good for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, what is your favorite, what's the favorite thing for you to make?
I really like doing cupcakes. It's kind of what I started with when I was in college. I worked at a cupcakery in Wilmington, and I was their baker. So I kind of had the freedom to come in and do my own thing every day. And it's where I started. It's where I like to go back to. So I definitely venture out with a lot of other things, but cupcakes are kind of my thing.
Now, how do you come up with the different types of cupcakes, the creations, the designs? How do you come up with that?
Well, I really like doing things that are different. I like pairing things that are sweet and salty together and working on things that other people aren't doing, or a new take on an old thing. So like my favorite cupcake to make is a bacon cupcake. And so it's like a pancake with based with bacon in it, and then it has like a maple buttercream. And so that's different. That's not something that other people do. I do an Oreo cupcake, which a lot of people do, but my Oreo cupcake has a full Oreo on the bottom. So I just like to switch it up, make things different.
So you have nice surprises within your cupcakes.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, that sounds pretty darn good right now, even though it is in the morning. Okay, so we've talked about your favorite thing to make. What's your favorite thing to taste? What's your favorite dessert? It doesn't necessarily have to be something that you make.
Ice cream has always been my favorite. I'm a big fan of it. And up until recently, I wasn't making any of it myself. So that was kind of the irony, was I made all of these desserts and I ate the one that I didn't make. But I was actually approached to be on a new Food Network show that's all about ice cream. And I was like, well, that's awesome, but I don't know how to make it, so let me get back to you. So it's been really fun to kind of take my favorite thing and find new ways to make it fun and unique instead of just, standard flavors.
Any particular flavor of ice cream?
I do a red velvet Oreo ice cream that is really, really good. That's been really fun.
So you're pretty much making up your own flavors, because I've never heard of a red velvet Oreo. I've heard of the Oreo and I've heard of the red velvet, but not the two combined.
Yeah.
So are you pretty much living every woman's dream right now, which is coming up with different types of desserts? I
mean, I don't know that that's every woman's dream, but that's kind of what I'm doing. So.
And it definitely seems like you're enjoying it as well.
Definitely.
All right, well, Meagan, thank you for coming in here this morning. Meagan Culkin from Sweet Creations, who will be providing Slugger's birthday cake for Slugger's 16th birthday tonight, or this afternoon's game. And so when we come back, we will have Cameron Langfels, the pitcher for the Wilson Tobs, coming up on this edition of Tobs Talk, presented by Thomas and Ferris, right here on Greenlight Channel 2. And welcome back, everybody, to Tobs Talk, presented by Thomas and Ferris, right here on Greenlight Channel 2. I'm Jake Donnelly, and with me right now is Cameron Langfels, the new reliever for the Wilson Tobs, who just picked up his first win a couple of nights ago against the CPL-leading Peninsula Pilots. Now, it was Cam's second appearance of the season. The first one against Columbia didn't go so well, but what was working better for you against the Pilots?
I'd have to say it was just the fastball location. I had the same catcher that I threw against Matt Rambino, the catcher on our team. He caught me against Columbia. And we attacked the zone more, and I kind of just let my defense work. I realized that coming over from a different league, this was obviously a whole lot better hitting league, so I realized that you're not going to be able to blow anything by these guys because they're top Division I hitters. So I really let my defense work, and I was fortunate enough to have great defense in the outfield on the balls that they did, come up with contact. So I just let the defense work and just mainly try to get ahead, and then if I got behind, really made a point to get back in the count. And I think I stayed away from walks. That was my kind of big stat line. I didn't walk anybody. And when you don't walk anybody, it's going to be a good day. So that really helps out, especially coming out of the bullpen. Yeah,
and you mentioned the bullpen. You were actually a starter in the previous league that you had played in. What's the hardest transition for you? What's the hardest adjustment that you have to make coming out of the bullpen?
I would have to say, coming out of the pen, you got to get ready to go quick. Your blood's got to get pumping. You got to amp up and come in, and you have to come in throwing strikes. You can't. You're a new pitcher. They're seeing a new ball come out of the hand. You got to be able to come in and pump the zone. As a starter, you can maybe get away with trying to get a feel for the zone, like get a feel for the umpire, see what he's calling low, out, whatnot. So you really just got to come in, and it's honestly just. I feel like it's like an amp-up thing. You have to have a mentality, and at school we talk about having kind of like a bulldog mentality, coming in and really just being aggressive. So that's the mentality, I think, is the only different part from starting and relieving.
Yeah, that Oral Hershiser mentality,
Yeah.
bulldog mentality out there on the mound. Now, you actually had an interesting thing out when you were on the mound against the Pilots. You started an inning and had an inning go by relatively quickly, but then you had to sit in the dugout while the Tobs scored 5 runs.
Yeah.
Now, I know no pitcher is going to be upset about that, but the inning took about a half hour. Is there any difficulties when you have to wait that long? What do you do when you're sitting on the bench for that long?
You can't. You just gotta remember that you also have a job to do, and you can't get caught spectating, which I'll be the first to admit I've done before. You get excited, your team's scoring runs, then before you know it, it's 1-2 outs, and then you got to go out there and out. So it was the kind of the first time I'd done it. I kept pacing up in the dugout, and I just kept stretching and moving my arms and trying to stay loose and everything. And then if the inning probably would have taken any longer, when I came in, Coach Hay told me I was going to go back out for the 7th. He said, just stay loose. And if the inning would have taken any longer, I probably would have maybe gone down in our bullpen and thrown. But yeah, I kept stretching, doing some arm circles here and there, and just try to stay loose, but also at the same time realize that the game's not over and you still got a job to do. So, and that next inning I found out pretty quickly when the big kid from the Pilots led off the inning with a leadoff double off the wall. It was kind of like, time to zero in. And he scored, but luckily my teammates and my offense got me a big enough cushion and came out for the 7th and got 3 quick outs after that in the 8th. And then our closer, Chris Williams, came in and did his thing. So.
Yeah, Williams now 8 for 8 on the season in save opportunities. Cameron picked up the win by going 3 innings, allowing just that 1 earned run when Alex Close, the designated hitter for the Pilots, led off the inning with a double. Very good job out of the bullpen. And then in the next night's game, you had to wait around because there was a rain delay, and yet you weren't just sitting around or walking around. You got yourself into a dance-off against Garrett Brooks and Andres Nello with the Peninsula Pilots. You held your own pretty well. Where'd that dancing come from?
I don't know. I guess just at school, kind of goofing around with my teammates, and when music starts coming on and we're all hanging out or anything, you start dancing. So I learned it from there and just some old teammates back at school. But yeah, when the owner from the Pilots came over in the dugout during the rain delay, he said, we're going to start in about 15-20 minutes, but before we're going to have a dance off. And we were all kind of like, okay. He was like, so y'all want to eat tonight? And we were all obviously, well, yeah, we want to eat tonight. And he was like, okay, well, which one of y'all can dance? And I promise you, he couldn't even finish the sentence before my teammate at Eastern, Kenny Hostrander, looked around and pointed at me and said, that kid can. And once he said it, all my other teammates started pointing at me saying I could. So at first I was going to be like, no, like I don't want to do it, but what's the harm? It was fun. So we got out there and he introduced us to the crowd, and he started playing the music and we did our thing, and then Quinn Atwood came in and kind of helped me out a little bit, and then Matt Parrish, our catcher, started doing backflips in the outfield, and then all of a sudden we brought him up in the infield and he started doing more backflips. So it definitely wasn't just me. It was a whole collective team effort on that. So
yeah, it was a good team effort from the Tobs there during the rain delay. And if you want to check out any of that rain delay theater, you can go to our Twitter handle, which is at Wilson Tobs, WILSSONTOBS. You can see Cam dance and you can see Matthew Parrish do the standing backflip, which I've also seen him do in catching gear, which is even more impressive. But Cameron, pretty impressive the last couple of nights, picking up the win in both on the mound and also in the dance-off competition. Cameron, thank you for coming in this morning.
Thank you, no problem. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, no worries. All right, folks, when we come back on this edition of Tobs Talk, we'll wrap things up. Tobs Talk is presented by Thomas and Ferris right here on Greenlight Channel 2. And welcome back, folks, to Tobs Talk, presented by Thomas and Ferris right here on Greenlight Channel 2. I'm Jake Donnelly. Thank you so much for tuning in to Tobs Talk. And at this point, I'd like to thank everybody that came in this morning, from assistant coach Chris Rawlings for the Wilson Tobs, as well as reliever Cameron Langfels, and of course, Meagan Culkin from Sweet Creations, who will be providing the birthday cake for Slugger as he celebrates Sweet 16 here this afternoon at historic Fleming Stadium. It's a matinee game, 5:05 start. It's kind of a late matinee, but a 5:05 start against the Fayetteville Swamp Dogs, with gates opening at 2:30 because it's also Guns and Hoses Day at Fleming Stadium, where the local fire and police departments will face off against one another in a charity softball game, with that softball game starting at 3:15. So if you want to see some softball followed by some baseball, you can come to Fleming as early as 2:30. The softball game between the fire department and the police department will start at 3:15, and the Tobs game will start at 5:05 against the Fayetteville Swamp Dogs, and we'll see if Drew Cole, who picked up 4 hits in the mini 2-game series against the Peninsula Pilots, can stay hot. Seth LaRue also had a pretty good series himself, picking up 3 hits in the first night's game, including an RBI double. So we'll see if the Tobs can yet again jump 1 game above 500, as they currently sit at 23-23. So folks, if you really want to enjoy a Sunday in Wilson, North Carolina, make sure you come out to historic Fleming Stadium, a Guns and Hoses softball game starting at 3:15, and then an old-fashioned baseball game between the Wilson Tobs and the Fayetteville Swamp Dogs at 5:05. And you can also celebrate Slugger's sweet 16th birthday here at Fleming Stadium tonight. Remember, gates open at 2:30, and first pitch between the Tobs and the Fayetteville Swamp Dogs is scheduled for 5:05. Well, this is Jake Donnelly saying thank you again for tuning in to Tobs Talk, presented by Thomas and Ferris right here on Greenlight Channel 2, and hopefully we'll see you all at Fleming.